Hello, I'm Regan. I'm the founder at Core Foundations Personal Training, and today I'm meeting with Prosper on the Online Prosperity Show, where we're going to dive into learning about how the human body is meant to move, how it should move, how you can improve your way of living and improve your pain, but also to listen to an entrepreneur's journey on how you can go from being in the corporate struggle to doing something for yourself.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, the number one place to uncover exclusive insights into powerful solutions. And we're getting this straight from the people who solve them. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And I've got a question for you. Have you ever struggled with pain, posture issues, or just tried endless fitness fads that have actually left you worse off? Our guest today is Regan Zampogna, the founder of Core Foundations Personal Training based here in Melbourne, who is here to help humans move better. Now, Regan, how are you doing, my man?
I'm very well, Prosper, and thanks for having me today. I've been quite excited to come on today and maybe share some insights to, how to help people move and better and live a better life.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. This has been a long time in the making, and obviously you guys that lift heavy things and move in certain ways, you calculate your moves. So I'm glad that we now have this opportunity to have a chat. But before we dive straight into this, is there something that you just wanted to say just to clear the air and definitely get started on this?
Yeah, I suppose all the things we're going to talk about today, I always say to people, this isn't medical advice. This is not something you need to take heed of today and implement tomorrow. This is just evidence-based stuff that either I've done within the studio with my team and all my clients over a 10-year period, and also some of the diet and the food and the things that I do to try to keep myself healthy are just experiments, I suppose, that I do every day to see how I feel better. So by no chance is any of this medical advice, and you should go and take it up tomorrow, but it hopefully will provide you some insights and some curiosity to maybe other ways that you can help look after yourself into the future.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for obviously opening us up with that. And now that we've got all the legalese out of the way, let's have some fun. Now,
absolutely.
Regan is somebody who helps, like I said, busy professionals move better, live pain-free, and rebuild strength using biomechanics, nutrition, mindset, and also precision coaching. He has the most 5-star Google reviewed personal training business in the Bayside of Melbourne, and that just really showcases to who he is, what it is that he does, and how he helps his people. So today we're going to be uncovering how he turned away from a corporate sales burnout at age 34 to now forge this newfound path in fitness. And also we'll be looking at how he implements his strategies using biomechanics and also self-sovereignty. So you should expect a deep dive into how his post-COVID shift actually shaped both his body and his business, and you learn why his methods work when others fail. Now, I want you also to stick around, because by the end, you'll have an understanding of what makes Core Foundations genuinely different and how you might see yourself in Regan's journey. Now, we could go on and talk about all the things that, are possible when people start working with you. Regan, take us back to the time where you decided, wait a minute, this whole thing that I'm doing in the corporate world ain't for me.
Yeah, I can actually tell you exactly. I was driving to work. I'd been with a company for about 10 years, national sales manager's role and working in the consumer electronics industry. And I had sort of got to a point where I felt like I'd outstayed my welcome there, and I'd been thinking about maybe what's next. And obviously, being that I'd sort of been in sales and business development and B2B, obviously I thought the next opportunity is probably going to a bigger company or a different industry. And So I basically went and did that. I spent 6 months, going through the recruiting process and moved into another job. And then within 3 weeks of being in that job, which was a much bigger company, much bigger role, something that I thought would be exciting and interesting, I remember sitting at my desk and thinking to myself, damn it, this is the wrong choice. I'm 3 weeks in. I'm already hating being here. I had a long commute from, at the time I was living in Hampton in Bayside, and I was commuting every day across town to Preston. Now, if anyone knows, Bayside to Preston's a sizable drive, and you have to go down a road called Hoddle Street and Punt Road. Right. Very long way. And it's for anyone who does that grind, they know that it's a pretty horrible 1 hour, 120 trip. It's not that far in kilometres, but it's a hell of a drive. And within a few weeks of doing that drive and sitting in this office and contemplating life, thinking, man, I don't think I've done the right thing here. I don't want to go back to the other place. I don't think I'm in the right place here. And so a few weeks after that, I sort of just thought, no, maybe it's just, it's just a new job. I've just got to suck it up and we'll be fine. And then as the months started to go on, I just, that was in about August or September of 2012. And I remember I got my way through to Christmas and just had a Christmas break and maybe had 2 or 3 weeks annual leave. And I remember one of the first days driving back to work down Punt Road and stuck in an enormous amount of traffic. And I happened to get a phone call, and it was like a private number. And I'm in the phone. I was in the car, answer it on hands-free. And it's a bank I'd just signed up to have a savings account with or something a few months earlier had just called me saying, hey, you've just won this prize. It's the 2013, you've been chosen for this award and you're going to get $2,013 as a prize. I'm like, oh, okay, look, great. I'm driving to work thinking, well, I could put that $2,013 just on the pile of cash that I've got in the bank and just let it do its thing, or I could maybe use it for something. And so I'd sort of been toying with the idea of having my own business. My wife had just recently opened up her own skin and laser clinic about a year earlier, and I was really interested in seeing all that transpire. And I thought, I reckon I could do something here. And so in the end, I basically had been thinking something in the health space. I wasn't an avid fitness person or someone who's, always out there every day doing stuff, but I've always played sport and done a lot of stuff. And I've always been interested in that sort of stuff. And I was working with a trainer at the time, a coach at the time, who was in this sort of functional training space. And he was always happy and he was always vibrant and exuberant. And I got on very well with him. And I thought, man, this is something I can do. I think this would be quite interesting to go down this path. And long story short, I got into the office that day. I closed my office door. I rang up a couple of training institutes who look after the personal training certifications. And 6 months later, I was qualified and I resigned and I left a high-paying job with all the creature comforts that most people would say you're mad to leave, and drove out the driveway to nothing. Wow. And that's where the journey started.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for starting us off with that. While you were talking about Punt Road, for some weird reason, my left leg actually started shaking. This brought me back to the time I had a manual car and it was a hot Melbourne day. I used to live in Northcote and I would drive into the city. Something that's a 15-minute drive would take hours because of the traffic in there. So my clutch foot actually started shaking because I took myself back to Punt Road and I said never again. But take us back to some of your sort of day-to-day sales roles that you were involved in, just so that we have an understanding of what the lay of the land was like, just a typical day. Mm.
So basically, when I first left high school, I went to university and I just didn't like it. And I left after 3 months thinking this is not for me. So I'd been working as a part-time young student at like David Jones and M.E.D.I.A in the city, and doing some training and some sales through there. And then my mother worked in the consumer electronics industry for a company called Breville, and she'd had a few contacts in the industry. So when I left university, and she's devastated, thinking, what are you going to do? And My sister was always the academic one. She was always the smart one, success-driven, an accountant at the time, really straight-A student. And I was always the sporty guy, and was in the popular group and stuff like that, but never made a fist of school. And so when I left all the university and all that stuff, Mum's thinking and Dad's thinking, like, what's this guy going to do? Like, he's got to get a job, he's got to work. And I was always pretty good at influencing people and talking and stuff like that. And so Mum said, listen, hey, I've got some people I know. There's a retail store. You should maybe hit them up. You're out of work. You need to do some stuff. So I actually started my sales journey at a company called The Good Guys, which you might have heard of, the electronics business. And this was back when they had about 11 stores in Melbourne. They were only a Melbourne-based business, and I was working at the head office store. And I sort of moved my way up through the ranks there. I ended up becoming the face of their advertising campaigns on their brochures, just due to chance. I ended up managing one of the stores there, and I sort of, I suppose, cut my teeth with some very old school, older sort of white goods and brown goods salespeople who, used to try and, slit your throat to sell the next fridge or the next washer. And so I learned a lot in those 4 or 5 years as I progressed into management, and thought, hey, I'm pretty good at this selling stuff. And I was, number one salesperson in the country there for a while and doing really, really well. But like you do sometimes, you sort of get to a point where you think, oh, am I going to be working, 6 days a week in a retail store my whole life? And, I'm sort of that person. I like to, build relationships with people. So I built a lot of relationships with a lot of the manufacturers and the wholesalers who were coming in and selling their products at The Good Guys. So I was at a Christmas party one night and I said, hey, the national sales manager of M.E.D.I.A Electronics was there at the time. And I said, hey, man, like I'd love to come to your side of the fence. And, hey, if anything ever comes up, man, I'd love to work for you guys. I think you're a great organisation and you're fun and I get on well with you guys. And long story short, 6 weeks later, I was working for them. And 22-year-old kid, come out of retail, no qualifications, no real background, have a sales, account manager role in Victoria, and at what was a sort of more of a budget, I suppose, consumer electronics brand, but they had a very big reputation. They were the number one selling TV in Australia at that particular time, back when TVs were 85 kilos and 68 centimetres big, and DVD players hadn't really been launched yet, and all that sort of stuff. So it was a different time, and I basically ended up being at TEAC for 10 years, and from 2002 to 2012, and basically progressed up the ranks from junior account manager to sort of senior accounts, and then it became state sales manager, and then ended up taking a regional sort of sales manager's role, looking after most of the east coast of Australia, about $80 to $100 million portfolio across about 85 products, working with all the national retailers like Harvey Norman, The Good Guys, JB Hi-Fi, Bing Lee, and companies like that. So so it moved really well for the most part of it. Really enjoyed it. A lot of flexibility on the road, a lot, and a lot of travel. A lot of international state travel. So I got to see a lot of things that a younger guy maybe wouldn't normally be able to get, especially not having to pay for it. So I got a company car and petrol card and phones and laptops and all this sort of stuff that most people pay for. I didn't have to pay for most of my adult life until I started my own business. And to think about walking away from that, it was quite daunting. And at the time when I was thinking about leaving TEAC, the business was just starting to go backwards a bit. We were struggling, and the writing was on the wall for me that maybe they weren't going to be there in a few years. And so obviously I made the attempt to get out, and I did so, and didn't know where to go, what to do, didn't want to stay in the industry, wanted to go out and maybe explore something different. So, again, through my network, I managed to meet a few people from the fast-moving consumable goods world, and I ended up landing a job at a company called Australian Office, which is almost $1 billion company, Australian manufacturer of paper-based products. So you may be aware of a brand called Reflex copy paper. That was the brand. That was their big brand. That was the brand I worked for, and I took on a national account manager's role there, looking after Coles Myer, Officeworks, so West Farmers Group. So some very big accounts across thousands of products and product lines. And needless to say, that was a very different product line from consumer electronics to paper. It was one was very cutting edge and very innovative and very fun, and one was selling exercise books. And 3 weeks into that, I remember sitting in a meeting discussing envelopes, and I just remember sitting in myself thinking, And I'm sitting next to a guy who's been in the envelope business for 40 years. Could tell you anything you wanted to know, the shapes, the sizes, the windows, the things, and the GSM and all this stuff. And I remember just sitting in this meeting thinking, I can't do this. This is going to be a bloody long road to sell copy paper and exercise books and back to school. And I know it's all stuff that people need, but by God, it was the most boring job I think I've ever had. No, actually, it is the most boring job I've ever had. There was a couple of good people there, but I had a very different personality. They were very deep into this paper business, and I was just, I don't know, I felt like the black sheep from the day I stepped into that place. And hence why I thought, man, like this is a means to an end. This is maybe I've got to find a way to do something different. But I wasn't overly excited about just maybe moving from place to place to place, trying to find the product or the thing that filled my bucket. Hence why I sort of made a call that I thought, well, if I'm going to sell something, maybe it's me.
Absolutely. You see, you started talking about envelopes, and I remembered my little sister once got sick because back home in Zim, we used to have envelopes, but they kind of put a bit of a taste to the glue, and my sister just started. Absolutely. So I can imagine if you would have gotten bored in the board,
it was interesting.
Lick some envelopes. And speaking of sisters, you did mention, your sister, and we've had the privilege of having her on the show here. Now, I just wanted to sort of maybe bring this across and say, was there any expectation on your part, considering your sister was studious and academic, and there you were being the stud as you portrayed? And I mean, you did end up being a model for the good guys, but, back in that time, it probably wasn't looked at in that sort of way. Was there an expectation for you to do well or to show up?
I wouldn't say overtly. There was pressure from my parents. I think my dad, my parents are both, high school dropouts. My dad turned 81 this year and my mum turned 79. So they were in the era of school where you could leave at 14 and go and get a job and all that sort of stuff. And both of them did that. So they were certainly not very academic. So they probably weren't leading from a place of you have to do this. However, like most parents, you probably, you are led to believe that, well, you go to school and then you go to college or whatever you do, and then you get a good job and you buy a house and you get married. And so like most of us, they're sort of indoctrinated into that system of belief, and whether you really adhere to that or not, it's still pretty commonplace for them to probably behave that way. And I think, my dad was quite supportive. I think he knew how much I hated school, and he was sort of like, you'll work it out, and he's probably supported me. Mum was probably a bit more nervous, given the fact that Bri was very academic, like the whole way through school, straight A's. Like if there was a B there, it was like a midlife, it was like a crisis, you know what I mean? And when I got a B, it was like, you're guilty. It's like, away we go. So I think they were probably more, when I was going through this process, Bri had just finished her, her university degree at Melbourne, and she was started a very big company, Price Waterhouse, and so in my parents' eyes, she was probably set up, like she was okay. Like she'd had the job and she was financially going to be okay, probably, not guarantee, but most likely. And here's me, 18, 19, hating university, getting in, just making it, mucking around, then working in retail. And so I suppose they were probably, the optics of that probably for them were a little bit worrisome, although they knew I was very good at sales, and but probably to them, they probably didn't think how far could you sort of take it. So, I think when I did get that original job at the Good Guys, which again was sort of due to help from my mum, I sort of felt somewhat, I won't say not pressure, but I felt like I've got to try and make a go of this because I've had a bit of help, and I'm not going where Bri's going, and it's going to be a different path for me. So I think, but once I started to progress through there and I was earning actually pretty okay money as just a salesperson, I think that probably allayed fears a little bit. And then obviously when I got the opportunity at TEAC, which was a whole different role, I think a few years into that, when I was probably, 24, 25, I was probably earning really good money for someone who was, a non-university, degree, bit of a jokester, bit of muck around, played a lot of sport, loved going out, So I think they probably realised that, hey, he might actually have found a niche here and he might do okay. And I think they could sort of see what I was doing, and it meant that they were pretty safe in knowing that you're okay now.
Absolutely. That's always a good thing when your parents sort of rest and just let you be. And, half of the time we discover ourselves on those journey. But, now that we have established what you had going on for yourself, I mean, you had all the cars, the accolades, everything else that came along with all the sales jobs, the travel, the perks and things, like you said, some of the things you never had to buy it. In your adulthood, what was if you had any maybe biggest fears of walking away from this stable salary? And by then you had your then girlfriend, who's now wife, what was the response, the day you walked back home and you're like, I'm not going back there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm lucky in some aspects with my wife because, was my girlfriend at the time, but she had obviously started her own business, and she'd already been working for herself previous to starting her actual own salon. And so she was sort of very, I suppose, driven and entrepreneurial like that, to want to do it for herself. And at the time, obviously, we didn't have kids. We didn't have any sort of mortgages or big overhead costs or anything. So, and I was probably fortunate enough with what I was earning and how I did that I'd put a bit of a stockpile of cash behind me. So it wasn't like action stations day one. So I could basically take the risk. I had a plan B, but she was very, very supportive. And I think, part of the reason I ended up doing what I did is because, when I sort of first mentioned, hey, I'm thinking about, becoming a personal trainer, she's like, oh, you should do it. Just, there was no hesitation, no, oh, what are you doing? Or, oh, you're mad? Or I think she'd sort of been on that journey of, business ownership and stuff like that. And, I think she was probably seeing how desperately frustrated I was with where I was at, even though I was earning good money and, but I was breaking out in rashes, and I was, all these sort of things where random things were happening to me where you sort of go like, this is not right, and I was frustrated all the time, and couldn't wait for Friday, and I hated Sunday afternoon, and, particularly as those drives went on, and I was just becoming a person that, I didn't like being around, and therefore it was probably not, in a lot of cases it wasn't great to be around, and I just kept thinking to myself, like, how am I going to do this for another 20 years or 30 years or, so it was, but the support was always there. And I think, my parents probably were a bit thinking, what's this guy doing? He's going to leave a whole heap of stuff and go take a risk. And probably, in their minds, probably thinking I'm going to end up going back because it's, too hard. So there was not a lot of pressure, I suppose. There was some implied, like, what are you doing? Probably from them.
Absolutely. And it's always good when you've got people that have some sort of a belief in what you're doing, which also then translates in belief in ourselves. But in your sort of early months when you had started Core Foundations, what were some of the client breakthroughs or maybe results that started coming in that then gave you that, oh my God, this is the lane, this is what I want to be doing?
Yeah, basically, obviously, anyone who's gone and become a personal trainer will probably attest to the fact that it's a pretty low barrier of entry to get in. Okay, it doesn't take long to be able to actually teach people how to use their body. The certificates are pretty basic. I think I went through mine in 6 months, or part-time and doing night school, but that wasn't overly difficult. So, to get into it's, not that hard. And so, but when I still recount, like, walking into one of the classes at night after finishing up in Preston and going into the city to go to school, and without the risk of sounding arrogant, I just remember walking into that room and seeing a lot of people in that room, and I took a look around and I just instantly thought to myself, I've got you guys covered. I've just got you guys covered. They were very, very myopic in the way they were looking at it. They were all coming in just because they liked to train. They thought, well, I'm going to become a trainer. And I was sort of coming from a position of like, my body's breaking down. I've had trainers. I've invested in them. I've got physios, myos. I've played sport. I've had a professional background. I'm a bit older. Can't teach experience. You can't teach experience in these courses. I've got a better sales and marketing and business development background than any of you guys have got. If this is my competition, it just started to give me a bit of a feel for maybe I can stand out in an industry of also rans. That was how I felt, whether that was right or wrong, but that's how I initially felt. Now, when I very first got qualified and I didn't know where to go, I thought, well, I've got to start somewhere. You know, I've created my own business and everything, but it's not really. I've just created a job. So I end up contracting out of a local Fitness First in the Bayside area, and you sign up as a franchisee there. You pay a weekly fee. They're meant to help you get leads, and then you go in and you're on the floor with 12 other coaches, and before you know it, it's 25 other coaches, and you're the most expensive member they have. They don't really help you. They have their favourites. And you've got, a 4,000 membership base you're working with, of which most 7% of them will only really buy personal training, and they're adding more coaches in left, right and centre. And so very shortly after sort of starting that to see if I could apply my talent, I just realised I did not want to do what everyone else is doing. Everybody else was pretty much training every human being like they've just watched Pumping Iron, with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 70s. It was like whether you're a 63-year-old lady or a 25-year-old beefcake, we're all doing bench presses and we're all doing deadlifts and squats, and that's what we know and that's what we've been told works. And I was sort of just like, I'd already been working with a guy in the functional training space, and his stuff was very different. So I was sort of trying to apply what I knew, the stuff he'd coached me, and it was very different. It looked different. A lot of people didn't quite know what I was doing. It created a bit of intrigue, but it also means you look like a bit of an idiot too, because people are like, what's that weird stuff he's doing? Why isn't he just putting people in the squat rack over there? And but I went and did a course about 3-4 months after starting, and it was all about functional movement systems and testing. And it was a big company called FMS, and they sort of came to town, and it was quite an expensive course. Well, what felt expensive at the time. But I remember going into that course and doing a lot of movement-based methods and testing and understanding patterns in the body, which I hadn't really thought about too much in the past. And I remember being in that couple of day or 3-day course or whatever it was. It was quite in depth, very big days. And I remember looking at the way I was moving and thinking, oh, geez, I move like shit. Like, how am I going to cut? Like, I can't do this. How's the average person going to do this? But what it did is it started to give me a toolkit and a roadmap that it became movement, not training. And that just resonated with me a lot, made a lot of sense. And I started to apply some of the logic and some of the methods, and it just, all of a sudden, like, I'd had a bad back for 20 years. I've got very flat feet. My mechanics weren't great, even though I was fairly fast and fairly strong. But as I was getting older, it was all getting a bit harder. And I came into this industry at 35. So I'd already paid a lot of the prices of sins of the past with my body. And I thought, like, geez, there's got to be a better way. Like, there's just got to be a better way to help people, because I was in, I go back to a story, Prosper, where I was at the job that I'd left, the last job that I actually had, which is at the office company. I remember being on the computer a lot. And at that time, I'd never had to do much of that stuff. I was literally sitting down all day, commuting a lot in the car. I was just on my backside all day, stuck at a desk. And I was getting really bad, like, RSI in my hands. And so there was an osteopath and a myotherapist right around the corner from where I was living in Hampton. And so I was going to get, some massage and some dry needling and some techniques in there, because it was just really troublesome. It was really bothersome being there all day. I was very uncomfortable. And I remember one day I'm in a session on a Saturday morning with one of the girls there, and she said, listen, I'm just going to go grab something and I'm going to pop out. I'm back in a minute. And I remember just looking at the computer screen and seeing like all my appointments there. There's like 35 appointments in like the last 6 months. And I'm thinking, like, this is not right. Like 35 appointments at $100, $90. I'm starting to calculate what I've spent. I'm thinking, but I'm still coming in for the same problem. So it just started to spark a bit of interest to go like, this is not working. The system's not working. My body doesn't like to be sitting down all day, and I don't think anybody's really does, but mine just really didn't like it. My hands are sore. I've been treated a lot. Nothing's getting fixed. And it just sort of, I think about back there, I think that when I came into this industry, it's like, there's got to be a better way. Are we really helping people was what I was starting to actually question, going, are we actually helping people get fitter or stronger, or, you know, are we rehabilitating them, or are we just managing symptoms? And I think that was probably a bit of a moment to go, if I'm actually going to make it in this and do anything of any really importance, if I keep doing what everyone else is doing, well, you know what, there's going to come a time where it's just boring and I don't want to do it. And if I'm going to be in the art of coaching and wanting to sell myself, like, what's going to be my niche? What's going to be my point of difference? And how am I going to have the most impact on the greatest amount of people? And, you know, from there, it just became a real curiosity around trying to look at best practice, trying to look at things that weren't status quo, trying to be a bit more curious, doing courses, going to seminars, trying to get around that movement space and understanding the human body better, not just from a, you know, I do an arm curl and my arms get stronger. How does that replicate to life and all those sort of things? And it basically took me on a journey of really, you know, going down the rabbit hole of trying to fix my body and to, you know, get the feet that I've never been able to, you know, run on properly because my foot were flat, to get them feeling better. My back, where I'd keep doing my back 3 or 4 times a year, you know, and these are things that most people are dealing with. And I thought, you know, if I can help myself get this right, imagine the impact I can actually have on people that I'm seeing every week, to give them some insight into maybe another way that exists around the system of, well, I go to the trainer, he does this, then I inevitably break down, then I go to the physio or the osteopath, they do some treatment on me, but they don't see me that often, so they do this, do that, then I go back into the trainer, doesn't fix the root cause of the problem, happens again, and I was on that hamster wheel, you know, training, hurting myself, training, hurting myself, training, hurting myself. And I just thought, it's health and fitness. I think all we're really selling people at the moment is fitness and fitness. And we're adding a lot of fitness and strength to dysfunction. And in that journey, I met some really key sort of global leaders at like conferences that I managed to just infiltrate into their courses and speak to them and have lunch with them and, you know, become sort of almost friends with them. And I think out of pure curiosity, going like, how have you guys done it? What have you seen? And the movement-based stuff just kept really intriguing me and basically started to shape pretty soon on in the journey of like, no, I've got to take it in this direction. I've got to stay the course, even if it looks a bit different and a bit silly or it's not mainstream. I don't think mainstream's working, just from what I've seen in a very small sample size. And I just don't want to be in mainstream. Mainstream looks boring to me, just sitting there coaching someone on that machine to this machine. It just didn't seem like the way forward, but I felt intrinsically like I was in the right place and I'm in the right career, but it just didn't feel, the shape didn't feel right. So I thought, I've got to explore this a little bit further. And I suppose, you know, I say it's like I went down the rabbit hole, took the red pill in the Matrix, and once you plug into that, you're very hard to go back.
Absolutely. You see, you know what I like about that is, and I'm going to say this with utmost love and respect, the healthcare or health and fitness or whatever it is that you're talking about around here really revolves around fixing symptoms, just fixing what's visible without actually going to if it's pain elimination or if it's actual restoration that needs to happen, because so many people go to these practitioners, they could go to a chiro or some sort of other practitioner for, like you said, 30 visits, and yet nothing ever happens. It's not necessarily fixing the problem. It's just managing the symptoms in such a way that people keep coming back for more and more and more. But this is a whole different mindset, like you're saying, the red pill and things like that. It's literally designed like that. It's designed for people to leak envelopes for 40 years and not realize that this is not right.
Correct.
I mean? So,
Correct.
So you must have been butting a lot of heads as you were going along, like you mentioned, and things of that nature. What was the sort of response you were getting from those around you, especially?
Yeah, I mean, particularly when I was working at a Fitness First where there's 20 other trainers who are largely doing the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was sort of an incident at the gym where the general manager of that gym brought one of his friends in, similar to me, a bit older, different industries, asked me to sort of help him because he saw that I would sort of set up pretty well. I had my own business cards and my own shirts and my own stuff. Like mostly I had an FPOS machine on day one. Most people are, doing direct debits and taking, I just bang, pay up front, so he sort of saw that I was doing better than most. And can you help, this guy come on board? And at the time I was really, gung ho and I'd love to help. I'm loving this. And I basically started helping this guy. And about 2 months later, I remember I get a call from someone. They said, "Hey, have you gone into business with that guy?" I'm like, no, I haven't. "Oh, well, when you come in, man, just check out his new business card." I'm like, okay. I walk in, someone handed me a business card, and I kid you not, mine had a very special logo. The way I designed it was you knew it was my card, right? This guy had one designed almost the same, with instead of having a red silhouette, it was a blue silhouette, slightly different shape. But I mean, it was like the Nike tick upside down. You know what I mean? And I remember I was quite young and naive at that time, and I was livid. Like I was really disappointed, and given that it was a favour that I did for this guy who ripped my stuff off for the general manager, who was his best friend that I found out to realise, and that I took umbrage with the person. I complained to management, and as you can imagine, management was his friend, so my card was stamped after that. 12 months in, my card was stamped. No leads, no help, a lot of talking behind my back. They were funneling all the leads to certain people. I got a decal on my car. He got a decal on his car. I did this. He did this. I go on holidays. He leaves with 15 sessions a week. I comes back with 40 sessions a week. I'm having people come up to me saying, they're bad-mouthing you all around the gym. They're saying the stuff you do is a joke. And it was a really, really, really uncomfortable time for me because I'd gone to do something that I found a real niche. I loved it. I was enjoying it. It was fun. Then all of a sudden going to work and seeing this person every day, quite frankly, I wanted to smash his face in, and it was because it was so blatantly disrespectful that it was my first real lesson in business. Really strong lesson, as you can sometimes you've just got to keep things close to your chest sometimes, and sometimes you can help and sometimes you can't, and sometimes you shouldn't, sometimes you shan't, that was really difficult to navigate that, because I sort of felt like I was a real fish out of water then, and I almost felt like my days were numbered. And so but basically, as tough as it was, it also then led me down a path of, while I'm here, I've got to find a way to navigate when I'm sort of playing against the tide here, because the tide, it's already hard enough with competition as it is, but now I've got people sort of conspiring to sort of try and knock me down a bit, because I was doing something different and I was well liked and I was making a fist of it while doing something very, very different, which I think for a lot of people is confronting. Different can sometimes be very hard for people. It goes against their biases and what they know, and they've got to try and hold on to that. So I was just doing something very different and unique, and I think I was an easy target, to look back on, but I think it's what made me the person I am today, because I started to have to get very calculated and very serious about, like, shit, if I don't get this right, I'm going to be out of here in no time. Like, and I'm going to have to start again somewhere else. And so I just started to get deeper in the rabbit hole of what I was doing. I got more specific. I got more detailed. I set up better systems and checks and balances. I found ways to, for a better term, bribe the salespeople there to give me leads. So I thought, you know what, if when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And I had to find ways to massage and stimulate and grease the palms of the wheel that was driving me. And in the end, I still built a very successful sole trader business there, even within that realm. I think in the first year, I still built about $110,000 of training services, which is a lot. In that sort of industry, given that most trainers work 6 days a week and do about 40 grand a year, they last 9 months, they don't last very long. I sort of thought, well, if I can survive that, I can be against the tide, I can still make a fist of it. My customers really like me. What I'm doing is making a difference. It is definitely different. The reviews I was getting or the clients I was attracting were people who were already doing stuff, going, this is not working. What are you doing over there? That looks different, looks interesting. So it just sort of sparked a chord of going, as hard as it was and as difficult doing something different, it still felt right to pursue and not just roll over and go, well, everyone else is doing that, so I should conform and go down that path. So it was a tough time, but it was probably the moment where it built a bit of resilience and determination to go, I'll show you.
You see, when things are happening, it does seem like, things are against us. Take, for example, a seed. When a seed is starting its journey, what might look to the seed as being buried is actually being planted. So whatever dirt they were throwing at you and things of that nature, that was actually then giving you the fortitude and the resilience that you now have. But not only was it people around you that were throwing shade in your light, even nature did something at you as well. I mean, I've been in Melbourne long enough to remember one particular year where I think if you were in the gym industry or if you were in the face-to-face sort of industry where things got shut down, and we were one of the most locked down, cities and the world. How did you survive that?
Well, forgive me if I've got a little bit of PTSD thinking about it right now. It does send a shudder through the system, thinking that, only 5 years ago, a business that I started and set up my own training facility in 2015, October 2015. So we're coming up to our 10-year anniversary is this October. And, so less than, 2015, less than 5 years in, we just come off, we just started to grow the team. We started to make a few moves, and March 2020 was the best month we'd ever had. There you go. And, well, it started off, and then all of a sudden by the third week you're starting to have all the rumblings of this happening. And, I'm not going to lie, I still recall a moment because my wife had a service business as well, and we just had I had a couple of young children, 4 and 2, and I remember sitting on the couch watching the TV with another one of those horrible bulletins every day. And I remember just sort of sitting there thinking to myself, shit, like my gut just went, this is not going to be a few week thing. Something didn't feel right about it. And I thought, you know what, we're going to be we're going to be planning the year out here. We're going to be thinking the year. We've got what can we do? Because we are what ended up being the first to shut, the last to open, the most ridiculed, the least worried about. You can go to a McDonald's and eat junk food, but you can't go and look after yourself. And it was a case of something about that just, particularly after the first, maybe the big lockdown when we had, I think it was maybe when we had the first April to June or something like that, a couple of months.
2 weeks.
When we sort of
2 weeks to
2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yeah, rightio. I think we can all sort of look back, and everyone had a different experience, and I won't go too deep into that today, but like for me, my curiosity levels and just the way my brain thinks, something just didn't feel right to me. And as it turned out, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you look back after 2 years and after 18 months of lockdowns and shutting everything down and opening it up and shutting it down and doing this and doing that, what did it achieve? It just kicked the can a little bit further down the road, stuffed the entire place up, made Melbourne, which is a place I've loved to live my entire life, a place where I'm sort of going, I may move out of this at some stage. This may not be my end game here, and but that time was, incredibly challenging. But I think again, you go through those stages of almost like really quick stages of grief. You get it, you're angry, you're upset, you're sad. Then you sit there 5 minutes later going, well, shit, I've got to get moving. Like, what am I going to do? I'm in survival mode. So we ended up, the nature of the specificity of what we do and how we work with our clients, I think, was the pivotal reason we succeeded for those 2 horrendous years in 2020, 2021, because we are only working primarily with people in a one-to-one environment and with technologies, thank God, like Zoom. I could prosper work with you in that room there for the next 18 months with limited equipment, of which we found equipment, we outsourced it, we delivered it direct to people's houses. We built an entire online ecosystem through our website with live group training that we brought in every day so people could just log in when they wanted to. We also did the one-to-one training with our clients. We basically just gave them no option. Hey, guys, you're going to have to do this. We're going to have to think about this for a time. How do we make it easy for you? We're going to drop equipment to your house. We're going to do it at discounted rates. We discounted our training rate because we knew they weren't be able to come in, but we just took I think it was 10 or 15% off. Just say, guys, we can't deliver you what we would normally. However, in order to survive and come back and do what we do, we need your support. Let's go on this journey together. Make sure we can keep you healthy while everything's going to pieces. And we mobilised that very, very quickly. We had a few days off, and then we just came back and went bang, 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 bang. 6 weeks later, we had the online portal set up. And, as they say in the classics, and that's all she wrote. And, we were able to trade as good as a bricks and mortar business could in that next 18 months. As you know, we were more or less shut down from April 2020 to end of October 21. And yeah, looking back on that now, to me, I say it's like biblical times. There's BC and there's AD. It's BC still exists and it's AC.
Up to COVID.
In my estimation, and but I attribute the fact that I had a good team around me. I had positive people. We had a methodology that was beautiful, that worked for people, whether it was in their, our catch cry was, if you've got, we should be able to train you in an elevator shaft and have a good workout. And we delivered on that, and we had a lot of people spend a lot of money with us, and absorb some of the risk that we took. To this day, I will be ever indebted to a bunch of people who backed us in client-wise, because we wouldn't have survived. A lot didn't. Quite frankly, it was just a disgrace. And I think to go through that and to be able to withstand it, I remember saying to one of my key staff members, who's actually now a shareholder in my business, I just sort of said to him, I said, man, there's going to be a renaissance period here at some stage. Like, if we've got through this 2 years of this shit, we could just about survive anything. Like we really could. But it really did. I like to think of it like what COVID did for me. it further opened my eyes to what the world we live in, the systems and the checks and the balances that we have to deal with every day, the indoctrination, the archaic systems that are crumbling around us, but also really how fragile our lives are, and how fragile peace is, and how fragile democracies are, and all these sort of things. And it just started to lead me to believe, like, hey, I've got to get smarter. I've got to upskill. I can't be snookered like this ever again. I felt snookered for 2 years, man. I just couldn't get past the ball, right? And it was a hard learn and a hard lesson, but I think it's shaping the person I am becoming. I haven't become the person yet, but I'm becoming a very different person post-COVID than I was pre-COVID. I'm a much more serious person. I'm a much healthier person. I'm a damn lot stronger than I ever was. And I'm really committed to becoming the best version of myself that I can be.
Absolutely. I think it was a wake-up call that we never knew we needed. And when it did come, it did really show us that our approach and the way we've always been doing things, that is now, no longer valuable and things like that.
Yeah.
So with the way that you sort of moved your business now, I mean, most business or most gyms really, really focus on lifting heavy things and, like you said, intensity, workouts and things like that. But now that you were doing things over Zoom, that actually meant most of the workout had to be done in the mind, or somebody could actually do functional movement and maybe posture rehab, which actually is a lot better than just trying to lift heavy things and hurt yourself all the while. So maybe you can why would somebody choose that way of being instead of what was always the norm?
I think it's what it's just what you've grown up understanding. Some people grew up playing sport. Some people in our age, like in our age group. So I'm turning 40. I just turned 47, and like we grew up in the era of the 80s and the 90s, where there was all these different fitness fads and Taibo and Zumba, and gyms were opening up everywhere, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was on the front page, and doing bodybuilding and pumping iron, and so we sort of went from not really doing any gym work to then all of a sudden gym work became sort of bodybuilding and strength training and a very particular or aerobics or group classes and stuff like this. And I think it was in those early days where the industry was finding its way. And I think the way we sort of approached it and the way we started to really find our niche is that we just started to look at the body and go, okay, so what are the first principles of movement? How's the body meant to move? And when we think about the body and think of first principles, we go standing, walking, running, and throwing. That's what a human being has been put on this earth to do: stand up, to walk, to run, to throw. Now, like I say to a lot of my clients, we don't have to throw much anymore to catch food or anything, but our tissues, our body, our patterns, and our myofascial system and our musculoskeletal, it's orientated around those types of movements. It's not orientated around sitting down all day. It's not orientated around lying flat on a bench and doing a bench press. As much as there can be some benefit in those areas, are we moving closer?
Speak for yourself, Regan. I'm very, very geared for this type of activity. I've got biceps in my thumbs now because...
No, you see what I mean, right? So it's like there's all this stuff we have to do by repetition now. Industrial age, we sit down a lot more. We don't have to walk upstairs. We get escalators. We don't have to, we don't have to do a lot of the stuff that we used, the incremental, the incidental. Everyone tries to park right next to the shopping centre, not away, and my business partner says a great thing. He says, people think it's practice makes perfect. He goes, it's practice makes permanent. And if you're permanently sitting down or you're permanently reinforcing poor mechanics, I like to refer to it as like a lot of us are walking around with flat tires, and then we're wondering why we don't feel good. And then we try and pump them up, but they go down again. And we don't actually address the fact that it's not the tire's not flat, it's punctured. So no matter how many times I pump it up, it's going to keep going down. And we just looked at things and went, hey, I went and did a training course. As you do with the internet these days, things come into your algorithm, and I'd been in the movement space, and then I was watching this methodology from afar. It was by the name of functional patterns, and I remember just looking at this stuff going, God, this stuff looks incredible. And they were advertising some older women doing some of these movements. I'm thinking, I know how hard that's going to be to execute like that. Wow. My thought was that this is either going to be total garbage or it's going to be like the best thing ever. Long story short, went and enlisted in their online course, started doing it. My body started to feel a lot better. My feet felt better. My back was feeling better immediately. And I was like, but I'm not doing that much. And I just went through the process, went and did one of their in-person courses. And I used to wear orthotics in my shoes, right? Bad feet mechanics. 2 months after doing their course, I never have to wear, 8 years now, I've never worn orthotics. So now that was the old Regan having to go into the system and have to have scaffolding put up around my body to make my body work better versus actually going, how do I make my body work better to not have the scaffolding? And we started utilizing this methodology and, we basically went down the rabbit hole with it and thought, you know what, let's just exclusively go down this path where it was very much about resetting someone's posture, looking at their gait mechanics, so those standing, walking, running, those really fundamental movements, and going, how do people do in that space? What's the low-hanging fruit? What are those qualitative minimums that they should be able to do? Can they do it? What's their posture tell us? How does their gait look? What are their breathing mechanics? How do they just respond to stress? How much sunlight do they get? Like all this sort of really basic sort of stuff in the biomechanical space. But we started to just experiment internally on ourselves, and we're starting to think, wow, this is really working. And then we had a young boy come up one day with his parents, and he'd had chronic back pain, like just 10 out of 10, been to every practitioner, every medication, every injection. And I just remember, this is not long after we started using this methodology, and I just remember saying to this young boy, I said, Jordan, I said, can you stand over there for me? I just want to assess your posture. And he had a pretty horrible disposition. He's very arched in his lower back. He had a lot of things we would refer to as limited intra-abdominal pressure, overlordosis. He just looked a bit like a piece of cooked spaghetti, no tension in his body. We did a couple of postural drills with him that day, and he goes, oh, my back's gone from like a 10 to a 2, just in one session. I'm like, okay, like, wow. So we started to think maybe there's something more in this posture stuff. And then we just started to learn it, get educated, do it on ourselves. And then we just started to see client after client after client after client start to feel better. And bearing in mind, we're not really in the pain game. I'm not here to diagnose. We're not here to treat you passively like a chiro or a physio. It's not our game. But we sort of somehow found ourselves in this niche between regular trainers and the allied health system. And all of a sudden there was core foundations. We're trying to stop you from going to the trainers, and we're trying to keep you out of them. And we just kept going deeper and deeper into the matrix. And as you know, in the matrix, when Neo wants to learn about jiu-jitsu, he just and away he goes.
Yeah. So
and that's where it went. Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody's looking at core foundations right now, or maybe listening to this or watching this video right now, just maybe walk us through your offers, maybe the training, the clinical nutrition, and you've also got sauna going on there, and why that mix actually matters. What's burning coals have to do with me walking?
Yeah. No, great question. I mean, I think for us, the cornerstone of what we do is rooted in the biomechanics, human biomechanics. So everything we do sort of comes back to how someone moves. As good as the sauna is, and the saunas are so great because with heat and cold exposure, there's proteins in your body that get activated and all these great things that happen. But in very simple terms, like someone just sitting on their backside in the sauna can get great benefits from, cardiovascular risk, all-cause mortality gets reduced. They get better, blood flow, inflammation goes down, they can lose weight. All these processes happen in the body, and it's a bit similar with sort of cold stuff as well. We have cold showers and all this. So there's all these great things that can happen, but they're not the cure-all. That when the body's moving poorly, then you're going to be stiffer, you're going to be sorer, your blood flow is going to be out. So a lot of people tend to go for the sauna first, going, that's going to fix me, when in actual fact they don't address the root cause of why maybe they're stiff, sore, and uncomfortable in the first place. So we always go through the process of anyone who wants to work with us, you can go and use the sauna, that's fine. but you have to do a consultation. We have to look at your resting posture. We have to look at your gait cycle. We look at those really key qualitative minimum standards that a human should be able to do comfortably and well. And then we sort of look at how we sort of progress them through there, and we start training them. We only train people in a one-to-one environment. We don't do group training. We don't have people lumped in with other people. We do it because if I'm training you, I mean, I always say to people, if you go to the hairdresser, well, you know, some people do, you don't go with your 4 best friends and get the same haircut. You don't go to the doctor and get the same diagnosis. You go by yourself for an individualized approach to get the right result. So we feel that when we're training the human body, if I'm putting 6 people in a group together, I'm diminishing the returns of somebody in that class. Doesn't mean they can't have fun or like the camaraderie or get a workout. But when people are coming to see us and they're wanting something fixed, it's very hard to fix it when I've got their 3 other mates chewing their ear off in the class who need something different to what they do. So that very granular specificity based around their posture and their biomechanics and those first principles of movement is where we start every journey. Like I said, we only work with people one-to-one. So we're not in the business of more is better, whereas in the business of better is better. We would love to see 5 people 5 days a week, but we understand time, cost, that commitment is very different to a gym membership. So we've sort of had to develop a system, even with 2 or 3 visits a week or 1 visit a week with people doing their homework. We've been able to get really, really good results. Has led us to get all these types of reviews. We get people coming, and we're in Beaumaris, and we get people travelling from as far as Mount Macedon each week to see us. Now, that's an hour and a half each way for an hour session. You know, you don't build up that reputation by just training them on arm curls. You know, there's got to be that specificity and the ability to fix the problem. In particular, this lady was bad knees, couldn't go skiing anymore. Now she goes skiing all around the world. She's 65. Now, for her, an hour and a half drive seems worth it. For the average person, they don't want to drive more than 7 minutes to their gym. So we've had to go to that degree of specificity, build a team of coaches who are all on the same page. No matter who you see in my business, we deliver functional training. It's not yoga on a Monday and Pilates on a Wednesday and bodybuilding on a Thursday and then go to the physio next week as you're sore back. It's very much about strength, mobility, stability, coordination, stabilization, all in the one platform based around those first principles of actually how is a human being meant to move. Everything's orientated around that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up to that. And for those that are watching right now, I'd love for you to maybe write in the comments wherever you are, Spotify, Amazon, or your favorite podcast app, or may it be on YouTube. What's the one pain or posture issue that's been holding you back? And just let Regan know your pain point. He might answer it, in the comments as we go along. Now, Regan, you did mention this is in Beaumaris, in beautiful part of Melbourne. Where else can people go to on the internet to find more information about what it is that you do and how you can help them?
Yeah, so I suppose the most exciting thing that we're about 6 weeks away. This is probably an exclusive here. We're about 6 weeks away from launching our first fully online training portal. Okay, the first iteration of our online business is going to be the Core Foundations Experience, or CFX, where we've put together, we're trying to create an online experience. So for our Instagram followers or for our Facebook followers or on our website, people who can't get to Beaumaris or don't want to do maybe a Zoom personal training session, they're going to be able to access the best bits of Core Foundations, the experience that we deliver as best as we can in the studio. We've broken it down into a done-for-you training portal where there's going to be a whole lot of education around your myofascial system, your posture, your gait, how to do myofascial release on your own body, troubleshoot. There's a lot of education through joint by joint. We're sort of calling it the core 4. It's the correct, optimize, reinforce, expand. So we're sort of putting to a whole educational platform because we're not in the business of just training people in an online session. We're trying to train you and educate you so that you can be successful away from being with us. It's the first time I've ever had anything at this level of depth that people are going to be able to get their hands on. It's going to be launching mid-September at this stage. It'll be a subscription-based product. We'll have a lot more information coming over the course of the next few weeks in relation to launch dates, pricing. But we've basically kept it in the vein of trying to make it a very simple user experience and the ability for people anywhere in the world to access really high quality training, either done for you, or you can do the hybrid version where you come in once a month and do a training session online, so we can actually see your posture, look at your gait. You can send videos, you can actually talk to real coaches, you can liaise with us in Q&As. We're trying to deliver the best of core foundations into an online platform where real people can get real results, and also be at a place where we can build a community of people who are maybe not overly satisfied with what they're doing, and then they are burning out or they are breaking down. And unfortunately, the mainstream is not talking the way we're talking. They're talking just add more strength or go to the physio. So we're really excited to be able to, for the first time, come to the market with an offering that's going to be incredibly valuable. It's going to keep growing. It's not just going to be about the training. The first portal will be training. It'll be prefabricated workouts. It will be education. It will be breaking the body parts down, giving corrective exercises around that. We are going to incorporate mindset. That's coming. We are going to incorporate nutrition. That's coming, because all these things, the biomechanics is the cornerstone of what we do, but we also appreciate that the way people sleep, the way people think, the way people eat are all going to determine how inflamed their body is, how well they move, and what they do. So, yeah, the Core Foundation Experience Round 1's coming in September. It's going to be very exciting, and we'll have more information to share on our socials at corefoundationspt.com, our website. There's a lot of education already on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. You can hit us up there. Yeah, I mean, I hope that's answered the question.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes below so that people can find their way there. And congratulations on all of this. I mean, obviously, when we started, you introduced us to this 34-year-old guy who didn't want to leak envelopes anymore, or lift another heavy television, or to sell paper and things of that nature. Would you have, maybe while you're stuck on traffic on Punch Road there, ever thought that your life would be like this today?
You know, I don't know if I would have thought I'd be where I was today, but I always had this belief that I was destined for something greater.
That's it.
I just don't know how it's going to show up yet. I don't think I'm there yet. So this is the next chapter.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see what you're going to create and what you're going to be doing. But Regan, thank you so much for sharing your powerful insights. I mean, your life story and your experience have got so much value for most people. Not only are you coming in as an entrepreneur, but you're somebody who literally created their own luck and worked on it. And now you're helping other people literally, move better, be better, and feel better, because you can't do well if you're not feeling well. So,
oh no, absolutely.
I think you're doing amazing work. So, thank you so much for that.
No, my absolute pleasure.
Great stuff. Now, for those that are watching or listening, if you've ever felt stuck in pain or just mediocre movement, or maybe corporate fatigue, I think Core Foundations might just be the reset that you were looking for and did not know that you needed. So if you're near Melbourne's Bayside area, check out Core Foundations at Biomechanics, or visit Core Foundations pt.com, or reach out via Instagram and Facebook. I'll be putting all those links in the show notes below. And I can't thank our guest, Regan, for joining us today. I mean, obviously, there's so much that we could have spoken about, but there's only so much time and so much attention that anyone can give to a topic like this. But don't miss our next episode, where we're going to be exploring practical ideas to help you build a happier existence, and hopefully one that's unhooked from pain and stress. And I also want to encourage you to do one thing. If you could maybe share this episode with somebody who is struggling with injuries, struggling with just trying to do and have a happier existence, maybe they could actually benefit from Regan's journey. And if somebody has shared this video with you, consider subscribing to the Online Prosperity Show so that you do not miss out on, content like this. And if you're ready to take up ownership of your health and move beyond the noise, I encourage you to take the first step today, because your body, mind, and future self will thank you. I can't wait to see what you do with this information. Bye for now.